we are constantly accessing data, sharing that data, storing that data. We are totally fascinated by data, analyzing it, exploring it, examining it, and looking at how introducing variability impacts it. We are constantly looking at ways to splice data, display data, and ultimately make sense of the data. When we do this, we're looking for feedback from that data. Feedback is defined as the return of information about a system or process that may affect a change in the process, like regulation or optimization or performance. In the simple example of cause and effect, one could say that effect is the feedback to the cause. We're also constantly accessing data with our brain and sharing it with the world and storing it in ourselves. We're also constantly looking for feedback, whether it's customer surveys or team performance 360s or academic testing. We want to know what others are thinking. Feedback is about gauging a situation and adjusting accordingly based on an evaluation. A feedback loop is defined as the closed path made up of the system itself that transmits the feedback about the system from its point of origin to its destination. Both of these are perfect examples of feedback loops. You're eating a piece of cake. This is the action. As you eat the cake, you realize how delicious it is. This is the result. The feedback loop is, wow, this is really yummy cake. So what do you do next? You take another bite. And another. And because the cake is so tasty and yummy, it feels good, right? Now let's take a different scenario, still using the cake example. You eat a piece of cake, that's the action, and when you taste it, you make a huge grimace. That's the result, because it's incredibly salty and it's rather disgusting, or there's something about it that just tastes horrible. But you continue to eat it, even though it's totally yucky. Why? Is it because someone else special made it and you don't want to hurt their feelings? Is it because even though it tastes bad, you're worried that this might be the only cake you'll ever get? What is it about this experience that tells you to continue to keep eating the cake? How have you been eating yucky cake over and over and over again in parts of your life? And how has that been serving you? This feedback loop is, in essence, a pattern. And the only way out is an interruption. So, still with the cake example here. You're eating that piece of cake. That's the action. When you taste it, you make a huge face, right? That's the result. But this time, you do something different. You put the fork down, or if you're like me, use a spoon, and you push the plate away. Maybe you ask the waitstaff for the menu again so you can order something different. Maybe you get up and walk out of the restaurant and go somewhere else. You choose something different. You insert a modifier. That modifier is a choice. Choice is the only way to interrupt a pattern. Choice is the modifier to a feedback loop. It's the introduction of a variable that invites change. Free will is about where you choose to place your attention. So free will is about making the choice to add a modifier. Do you continue to eat the yucky cake and keep the pattern going? Or do you choose to introduce a variable and invoke a different experience for yourself? Life is a feedback loop. You do something, you see the result of that action. And you either keep doing it or introduce a variable. You like your job, you stay there. You don't like your job, you start making phone calls and start searching for positions on job boards. Same thing with the food we eat, with the people we hang out, and with the recreations in which we take part. When we are not enjoying a situation or person in our lives, but continue to have the same experience over and over again, the invitation here is to begin to see the purpose of this feedback loop. How is this patterning serving you? We always need to honor our patterns because they are serving us in some way. If you're eating way too much cake every night, yes, you might be putting on weight, and you could say that this is an action that's not serving you. Well, you'd be right to some extent, but it's not about the eating of too much cake. What we want to do here is look what's behind the action. Typically, I've found that these feedback loops often have to do with self-care or the lack thereof. And usually, the lack of self-care is attributed to witnessing a parent not doing such a great job of self-care themselves. After all, our mirror neurons are always running in the background and working for us. So what they are seeing is what we're learning and therefore doing. I can't believe I'm about to give a sports analogy here, but I am. In American football, the offensive team runs a play, also known as a pattern. The goal is to make a touchdown, right? Well, the defensive team's job is to interrupt that pattern with the goal of not letting the opposing team score. So they run an interruption to the pattern. Interference is when a player obstructs an eligible receiver's ability to make a fair attempt to catch a forward pass. Know when to become the interference and shift your patterns. And find the interference that works in alignment with your passion, with what motivates you, what drives you, what gets you to bound out of bed every morning. Find your reasons to create a new impact in your life. Learn to become your own self-regulating feedback loop and know when to introduce interference to create new cause and effect in order to have the new experiences that feel really awesome.